Thanks for coming for our first ever HMC Sales Institute. I read an article by Seth Godin who said that, you have to have your worst ever in order to build on that to become better. So, here's hoping that we become better each month that we do this. But we wanted to talk about Bullseye accounts today. And essentially, I've heard it called Bullseye accounts, target accounts, dream accounts. Really doesn't matter, but the Bullseye account is essentially your best buyers. And the concept here is that, it costs a lot less to market to a narrower niche. And so rather than trying to market to 10,000 customers, if we can find 100 customers that are much more ideal to what we want to accomplish, we can be more efficient. And quite frankly, when they buy big. They're not concerned about buying 2,000 or 3,000. And if we are targeting those customers that are smaller, that every order is a challenge for them to pay for and write, well then those are going to be harder to get, take longer to get paid for, all that sort of thing. I was thinking about this a couple days ago, and I thought, essentially, a lot of the time, in my experience, I've had the best luck when people are spending their budget, not their money. So though small business owners are definitely good clients, those people who they're spending money that's not really their money, it's easier to get them to spend it. And I was thinking this morning as I was making notes about this, one time I had a client from Smucker's. We'd done a whole presentation, and they'd gone through a whole PowerPoint and all this stuff. And quite honestly, when I'm meeting with clients like that, you're swinging for the fences. You're saying, okay, this is the price on such and such and such and such. And she called me, and it was toward the end of her budget year, and she said, I'm sorry, we can only order 10,000 bags. It's not a problem. We can take care of that. So we want to get more clients that apologize for only ordering 10,000 bags. And I think that by doing that, it can effectively double and triple our sales without adding a ton of clients, by just adding a few. And once we have that list, essentially we want to kind of take them down a path that starts with, I've never heard of this company, of Hasseman Marketing. What's this company I keep hearing about? I think I've heard of this company. Yes, I've heard of Hasseman Marketing. And two, yes, we do business with them. So I'm going to essentially come up with a few steps that we're going to walk through to do that. And then, of course, we'll have questions to talk about and all that sort of thing. So number one, the first step in creating sort of our how to attract and get Bullseye accounts is really to make a list of the Bullseye accounts we want to get. And honestly, for me, this is sometimes the toughest because you kind of really need to put away the email and the phone and everything and just kind of put yourself in a room and start making a list of, okay, what do these clients look like? Who are they? Where are they? Regionally, does it make sense for them to be in a certain place? How many sales? How many employees? And really, that's going to be entirely up to each person. What kind of business does Jeff want to deal with, or Amy want to deal with? And it's totally subjective. It's entirely up to you. But it's one of those where you have to kind of go through that process. And honestly, this is the process. This is the piece that every time I start to, I actually put on my list, make my Bullseye list. And I struggle with doing that. I need to work on that. Once I get the list, I think the next steps are a little easier and a little more fun. But step one, choose the list. In the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes, which I really like, so if anybody wants to borrow it, you can. He calls it the Dream 100. Now, I don't know that if it's 10 or if it's 5 or if it's 50 or if it's 25, and each one's different. But I kind of think start a little smaller because just of the ability to follow up. So whether it's 10 or 20 or whatever. But the key then is once you go through the cycle with that 5 or 10 or 25 or whatever it is to repeat the process. So step one is just to choose the bullseye list. Step two, choose gifts for the bullseye list. And the key here is, when you're thinking self-promo here. So the key to remember is that you don't have to buy a million of these things. So it doesn't have to be a huge budget to do it. We just have to have something well thought out, and you won't have to do that many of them. From my perspective, we've done a lot of different things here, but I always say, be memorable. Doesn't have to be that expensive. It really, honestly, a lot of times if you go really expensive, sometimes people are uncomfortable because they kind of feel like it's a bribe. And that's not the idea. The idea is really just to create top-of-mind awareness. So whether examples of things we've done in the past, just a mug with a baseball bobble on it, where you can build a sports theme around it. We've done the monkeys that are downstairs that have the arms that stretch, go through to the legs or whatever. And again, you can build onto that, saying, are you being pulled in too many directions? Are you being asked to stretch your marketing budget? We've done cows, we've done dogs, and keeping in the animal kingdom, we've done giant ducks. We have some of those downstairs as well. Honestly, the ducks have been some of the most memorable, just because you don't often get a giant duck sent to you. But really it's just a matter of finding something that is appropriate to you and your personality, and something that will grab attention. And I always like to be fun. Now again, part of it is you got to consider budget. So that's going to be up to each individual person. So whether it's a duck or a tape measure, it really doesn't matter as long as you're able to follow through. So step two is choosing the gifts. Okay, so number one, choose the bullseye list. Number two, choose the gifts that go to the bullseye list. Step three, write the bullseye letter. And so you're going to tie it in with the gift, right? So if you get a stopwatch as your gift, you're going to say every second that you're not doing business with Hasseman Marketing is a second that you're wasting opportunities. Flashlight, you want to shine a light on opportunities. Calculator, how much are you losing by not, again, you just want to tie into the item with the letter. Kind of the quintessential one is that little stress foot where somebody says you're trying to get a foot in the door. Whatever it is, something that you can kind of tie it into and make a memorable thing. Now, I kind of like the idea of, and I'll kind of get to that in the next piece, but I kind of like the idea of having multiple items so that it helps you go from, I've never heard of this company, to, yes, I've heard of this company. So that when the nice thing about creating really memorable, fun things is when you do pick up that phone to call that person, they're going to know who you are. They may not know that much about the company, but you're the guy who sent them the giant duck or whatever, okay? And we've had a lot of luck with that. And it's honestly one of those things that I keep thinking, okay, I need to get back to prospecting on a more bullseye-based way. Okay, so we've chosen the list, we've chosen the gifts, and then we've written the letter. And again, in that letter, whether there's an offer, whether there's just a little bit about our company, but really it's got to be, I always think that it's one of those where it's got to be you-based. It can't just be about, hey, here's us, here's us, here's us. It needs to be about how can we help you do your business better. And then maybe the most important thing, well, maybe not the most important thing, but a big step in the success is to create your bullseye activity calendar. So that the point is there's a plan, right? You're not just haphazardly doing this. You're going to send the item on a Monday, they get it on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you follow up on a Friday, and you do that consistently. And each one of these is going to be a little different. So if you're going to do one mailer, then you'd create a plan based on that. If you have the one where we did a 3-tiered mailer, we did it a couple different ways. The one I liked the best was we essentially did Monday we did a mailer that they would get on Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday we do a mailer to get on Friday. Then the following Monday they get the third mailer in a row, and then we'd follow up on Wednesday. So really within a week and a half, we'd touch them a bunch of times. There was a bunch of different things on their desk that got their attention. And then when we picked up the phone to call, they knew who we were. You know, a basic direct mail piece, you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 3% effective return. You know, on a campaign like this, the return is much, much higher, 50%. Again, with the goal of just trying to get a meeting. But really, the key here is to create a plan that, okay, what am I going to do each week to reach out and touch this client or this potential client? Is it going to be an email, a phone call, a letter, another gift, a stop by, whatever it is, there's a plan in place so you say, okay, on Wednesdays, this is what I do. I think it was David Blaze talks about how successful people create habits of doing the things that non-successful people don't want to do. By creating an activity calendar, it creates a habit. You know what you're doing each and every day. You know, whether you use an Infusionsoft, your own sheet or whatever, but there's a plan in place. And then, so that was 4, right? So probably I'd say this is maybe the most important, just because I always say the fortune's in the follow-up, and the key is really then follow-up. Jeff, you talked about it at one point where you're like, okay, I'm following up until, okay, they're off my list and I'm out of the radar. But then you start the process again with new people. So the key is really, by creating that plan, you're wasting a whole, that was actually one of the things I really liked about that 3-tiered mailer, is it actually cost me some money. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it cost me enough money that, by God, I was going to call and follow up, because I'd spent $20, $25, $30 just in the items and shipping and time, you know. And so now, was it worth $50 for me to get that one account? Of course, but it made it so that I was absolutely willing to do the follow-up, because I'm like, okay, I've invested not only my time and my money. So yeah, absolutely. So, and the other thing is, honestly, if we do this right, and this is, I really feel like this Bullseye stuff is right in our wheelhouse, because we are fun and we are creative and we are, you know, this is the kind of stuff that is just right in our creative wheelhouse. If we do this right, when we pick up the phone, usually people are, I mean, you know, they know you're doing the sales piece, but they're usually smiling when you pick up the phone. If there's you know, there's a lot of people who do what we do. There are not a lot of people who have put a giant duck on their desk. And so, so it's one of those where, honestly, when I've done those things, usually it's like I pick up the phone. Hi, I'm Kirby Hasseman, Hasseman Mark. Oh, you're the guy who sent me the duck. Absolutely I am. And so it really is, it makes it so that they already feel like they have some sense of you. And if you're working in an area where you already have some credibility anyway, if it's Zanesville or Tuscarawas County or whatever, so, you know, they might even have some inkling that you're there anyway through chamber stuff or press releases. By adding this, it really does, oh wow, the competitors are not taking this initiative. And so the follow-up is actually, it really can be fun. And really, when the goal, so far, the goal of this whole thing is to get a meeting, right? And so if all you're asking for is a little bit of their time, I feel like it's a pretty easy ask after all this. I mean, the rules of reciprocity actually start to kick in. They're like, gosh, this guy has spent time and effort and money. He's different, she's different. So yeah, I'll give them a chance, even if they already are have that. Okay, so that's the 5. So we've at 5 steps. I got the 6th step here. Total of 6. I think the key here now, and this is something I think I'd like to spend some time on at a later meeting, is we've chosen the list, we've sent them gifts with a cool letter, then we've done it consistently through a calendar, and then we followed up and we've got the meeting. The 6th step on this is we need to be prepared to add value at that meeting. As Blaze says at one point, he says, you don't want to walk in and say, there are 17,000 promotional products distributors, and I am one of them. You know, I like the idea of coming in with some sort of value, whether it's spec samples, whether it's specific ideas because you've done research on their business and you feel like you have some added value. If you're talking to you know, somebody marketing, then maybe you've got the latest thing that might help them. If it's HR, maybe you've got safety statistics that, you know, you can show how you can help them with that. Now the other key is, of course, you got to go in there and ask questions to see what they are doing and aren't doing. But I think that at a meeting like this, especially if you're targeting Bullseye accounts, you're probably targeting, or you should be targeting, what do they call them, C-level, CEOs, presidents, because they can always push you to marketing. They can always push you to HR. But if you're talking to them, they have the real authority to do real spend. So I feel like we have to go in there with some sort of value-added thing. What I'd like to do in the very near future is create sort of, you know, 5 tips for increasing your sales. 5 tips, you know, so that's for your marketing and your president or whatever. 5 tips for increasing safety on the job for HR. And so I feel like that's a really great value-added thing. But again, I don't have to do this, guys. You can. And so when you do that, you have already set yourself apart because we've gone through this process that most businesses and most salespeople aren't willing to do. If you walk in there with value, that you're, you know, essentially you're saying, look, these are the facts. And oh, by the way, we provide a service that can help with that. You've positioned yourself as an expert too. And I think by doing that, it totally sets us apart from the rest of the competition and gives us an opportunity to legitimately double sales individually. And so that's the plan. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
Have you created or have you seen a Bullseye calendar, or will it depend on each individual account?
I have done it a couple different times for myself, and it's just been, you know, and I usually do it over a month so that you've given yourself a little bit of time because, you know, again, these people are busy. So even if it's on their desk on a Tuesday, it doesn't mean that they're going to look at it on a Tuesday. So I always like to have, you know, let's say I send it on a Monday, they get it on a Tuesday, it gives them Wednesday, Thursday to open this box. But yeah, I created that for myself because it depends on, okay, are you doing 1 mailer? Are you doing 3 mailers? Are you doing, you know, what is it that you are going to do? And then just put it in place for your specific, because it depends. It depends on, okay, I've decided I'm going to go after all manufacturing clients. Well, they may have a different schedule or thought process than I'm going to go after all marketing or whatever the case may be. Make sense? Okay.
I think we found too that doing 2 or 3 at a time is the way to go versus a whole bunch, because it's hard to follow up.
Me 2 or 3 Bullseye.
2 or 3.
Yes.
Yeah, not more than that, I guess is what I'm saying. Just because if you do 10 of them, just like these mailers, you get overwhelmed and you have all your regular stuff to do anyways. So if you've got too many of them, it's hard to.
That's a great point.
Keep up with
this campaign of the box mailer is a really good reminder of how hard it is to, if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, oh, I'm just going to follow up with 50 people. I mean, if you have anything else going on, it's really hard to do. So Amy's right. I mean, we did have more success when we were like, okay, because then I can dedicate a half a day or a couple hours on a Friday to make those phone calls. And it's like, okay, it's on my calendar. Whereas it's like, oh, I got to call 25 people. It's really hard. And you know, it's one of those where you're almost, you get excited when you get to leave a voicemail. Well, in reality, that's not what you want. Because voicemail's quick, I guess is what I'm saying. Whereas if you get to talk to them and they want to talk, that's perfect. Well, you want to be able to dedicate that amount of time. And at the end of the day, with each of us individually, 2 to 3 is plenty. You get 2 accounts that can spend $100,000.
Be great.
Well, not only it'd be great, it'll be you'll have to keep up with their orders and their quotes and stuff. So that's why, again, in this book, he's looking at the Dream 100. I think that's a little bit unrealistic for us individually to follow up with. Because if the fortune's in the follow-up and you're not doing that, you could send them a great thing and they could have it sitting on their desk, and if 3 weeks go by and then it goes away, that sense of urgency is gone, and you've missed a window there. But that's exactly right, Aim.
Well, there's one account I'm working with, and I don't think it's a Bullseye account. It could be, but she put in an email, I hope I'm not giving you too much work to do. It was check on this item, and oh yeah, what about this and this? And no, it's fun, but it takes time.
It does. It does. And one of the things that, and this is sort of off topic, but sort of not, when you get those kind of accounts, you start to really want to focus on, okay, you've got so many real selling hours in the day. And so many times we get busy with busy work during selling hours, and that's when you're like, well, gosh, I can't get anything done. Well, nobody wants to hear this, but from 7 to 9 at night is a great time to do product research and check on this and check on that. When it's 9 to 5, the more time we can spend in front of a client, the more sales we will have. Greg, is it Mazzullo or from Proforma? But he talked about, as salespeople, we have the opportunity to choose which desk we go to. Is it the $10 an hour? Is it the $40 hour? Is it the $400 an hour? And he asked a whole class of people, and I was in there, and okay, which job do you choose? And everybody says 400, and he's like, you're all liars. None of you do. And if you choose the $400 an hour, the $400 hour is being in front of a client. That's where you make the most money by far. And it's not close. I mean, it's one of those where if you're in front of clients, that's when you're making money. So, cool. All right. Good stuff. Well, thanks again for being here. I am going to work on some things like that. That's one of the things that I was in my head this weekend. I told Amy I would like to create a presentation for each of us. And I'm not doing this today. This will take a couple months for me to put together, I think. But the idea being, these are 5 or 10 tips for growing your business in any economy or something. And they are going to be specifically driven toward what we do. In the past I've done these top 3 mistakes small business marketers make, and those are good. But they don't specifically talk about what we do. So what I'd like to do is create an opportunity where we are doing a lunch and learn, and maybe we partner with a local chamber, but then we actually get on the horn and physically invite people to it, get a lot of people in the room and give this presentation so that we can, again, present ourselves as the expert, hit more than one person at a time, and put ourselves, look, these are things you can do to increase your sales, test your marketing, those sort of things, test the effectiveness of the different media and all that sort of thing. I'd like to put that in one presentation, and I think that there would be some real value to that. And so, but I guess I know I've said this before, but this is the kind of thing, though, that I'm continuing to work on, and I'm glad to do, but you can do. You find articles out there, give talks, do YouTube videos, build your personal brand. Those sort of things really do set you apart in each market. So.